Hello there, this is Candice Schwark for Visual Faith Ministries, and as Advent is approaching, I thought I would show you an option that you could put together with your family, children, for a fun Advent project. This is a document that's in our resources library in the shop on visualfaithmin.org, and it's designed by Angelica Young for Advent for the 25 days where you can do a scripture to each little number that's listed here. So I took this page and turned it into this page, which becomes a journal. And I put down the names of God in each window and the names of Jesus. So that filled up 25 windows. And what you can do is once you have this all set up, I'll show you how to make it into a journal so that you can have the names of God and the names of Jesus in the journal, and you or your family can take turns reading one of the scripture from here and or writing it in the journal each day of Advent. So it's a nice project for yourself or for the family or even for a small group Bible study. So let's begin. It's not really hard, it looks like it, but I've listed the supplies that you will need, which is mainly some buttons, some thread, scissors, something to punch holes with, which I use in all. And there are several different kinds, thin and small. It just needs to fit the size of your needle that you'll be sewing with. I'm using a wax thread, but you could really use yarn, anything that you want that you can get through the holes. You'll need to get 10, I used 11 sheets of just plain copy paper. And the first sheet and the last sheet you can decorate with something else. I put this graphic of just Advent on the first page, and then the rest of the pages are what you would write on, or you can add other graphics if you like. So I will leave this aside here so you can kind of see it while I'm working. So first of all, you're going to typically when you make a journal, you should take the cover and the inside and punch them separately. For this is small enough that I'm going to do it together. So you have 11 pages that you folded in half, and you folded the cover sheet also in half. And it folds pretty evenly. You will have some overlap with the tree that'll be on the back of the cover. Okay, so you just sandwich them together, fold them in half, and press them down. And if you don't have something flat to press them with, like a ruler, you can use the back of your scissors to press down the edge. You want them to be a tight fit because you're going to punch holes. So before you punch the holes, you're going to make yourself a little template. This is going to be 8 inches tall. Sorry, 8 inches tall. And I've written this down here so you can copy it for yourself. But you need to write on this little 2-inch piece of paper, which is the top. And then we're going to punch holes. Now, I know it looks confusing here because I've shown you the hole punches as well as the sewing. So the first thing you're going to do is punch a hole at 1/2 inch, and then at 2 inches, 4 1/4 inches, and then 6 inches and 8 inches. And what you'll do is mark them on here. So you see where I've marked the holes, where they should go. And if you had a catalog or even a thick book that you could put this inside of, it's much easier to punch the holes if you don't have a punching cradle, which is what people use to punch holes. I tend to just hold it up and have either a mouse pad, something soft underneath it, but I've done these in advance. What you want to make sure you do is punch through so that you're even on the outside of the cover, right in that fold. You don't want it to go opposite, which I did. So you're going to punch every hole all the way through. And when we go to sew, if they're not big enough, you can just push your needle through to make them bigger. So you do all of the holes. Okay? And remember, this is the top. You'll remember which is the top of your book. But so just make sure you've written top there so we know when we go back to sew what we're going to be doing with sewing. I use these little clothespins all the time for all kinds of things. So if you have those handy, that's helpful for sewing and for marking your holes. In fact, I'm going to put them back on now. The only problem is that you might get your thread tangled up in the holes. So now that you have your holes punched through, you can begin sewing. I'm going to put this back here so that I can just go through it with you, so it doesn't sound too confusing. On my book, I have buttons on the outside. If you don't want buttons, you can start on the outside and go inside, and you won't have any strings dangling on the outside. But for decorative purposes, I'm going to have you start on the outside and bring your thread through the center hole to the front. And I'm going to do this with trying not to get myself all tangled up here, which is kind of hard when you're doing it on screen. So the first one we're going to do is, I have number 1. We're going to come in the outside hole and pull it all the way through and leave. If you want to protect yourself and not be afraid of pulling it through all the way through, you could put a little knot at the end that you can cut off later. That might be a good idea. Just a little knot so it doesn't come through the hole as you're making it tighter later. Okay? And you're just going to go up the book to the next hole, go through with the needle, pull your thread taut, and then go in the top hole. Without stabbing yourself, as I may just end up doing here. Okay, through the top hole. And then you're going to just weave your way right back down again. So you came through the top hole. You can see what the back looks like. And then go back into the hole you just went through. Now, when you do that, try not to split the thread. Go so you're outside of the thread, because if you have to take it apart later, it won't work if you've split your needle and put it right through the center of the thread. So put it beside the thread, if you understand that. Okay? And then you're going to go all the way down past the center hole to this hole. In this hole, I messed up myself, I believe. There. Okay, so you came all the way across where you had knotted it to that hole. Now we're inside. We're going to go down to the bottom, go out that hole, and then you're going to go back in this hole. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th hole, without splitting the thread. And pull it taut so that you don't want this look. You want it to be pulled tight. And then you're going to go back out the center hole. And this time you're going to try to do it so that you are on the opposite side of the center thread, which I didn't do, but I think you can see that. So I'm going to push this thread underneath here. And I should have left it a little longer because I do want beads. And it's not tight, so can you see how it's not tight there? So I'm going inside and pulling the threads so I can tighten it up. Pull my needle again, there. So now it's all length smoothly on the inside and the outside. So now you're just going to tie a knot over that, so this knot is over top of the center thread. Okay, so it's holding that center thread, and then do it again. So usually you do right over left, left over right for a square knot. And then if you left enough thread that I didn't, you can add some beads or some buttons. Oops, and I'm not even knotting it very well here. My fingers are getting in the way. Come on, Candy. There. Okay, so, I mean, I could still put beads on here. I could still put beads on here too. But the most important thing is that you know how to sew it. So when you see this template, once again, I put it at the top so you can follow it. So I'm saying that you go out, number 1, the center hole, which is that center hole. Okay, you come in at 2, this way. Go out at 3, this way. And then you're going to just weave your way back. So hopefully it's not too confusing, but it's really it's called a pamphlet stitch, and it's really a pretty easy stitch. Then you can take these off, and I would also once again go back and smooth down this edge so it lays flat. And I'm not going to put the buttons on. I'm sure you can figure out how to just thread the buttons or beads, whichever you like, on the outside. Or you can just leave strings hanging down or tie more strings onto it, or some yarns. Okay, so then you're just going to go in and do your coloring and numbering everything. What I did with we have this Names of God and Names of Jesus. All I did was glue this to the cover. And if you want to, you could ink the edges of this card, or you could layer it on another piece of cardstock to put it on the inside cover and the inside back cover so that you have a reference handy. Now in this book, actually, you might want to put it on this page. In this book, I made a little pocket in the front with just a piece of scrapbook paper. Actually, this was watercolor paper that I just cut up. But you could use washi tape or a strip of scrapbook paper, any decorative paper, and just glue it on 3 sides and make a little pocket for your Names of God and Names of Jesus. So I did, actually, there are 2 different ones. So that's colorful, something to do too. Or you could just glue it down. So that's your little Advent project, and I hope you try it. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know. You can send me an email at Candice, Candice, @mac.com, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Blessings during the Advent season and beyond.